Video opens with cinematic shots of samurai in battle, cherry blossoms, and ancient Japanese castles. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. When you hear the word samurai, what comes to mind? Is it the lone warrior, silhouetted against a setting sun, his hand resting on the hilt of a razor-sharp katana? Is it the stoic figure from an Akira Kurosawa film, bound by an unbreakable code of honor? The samurai are one of history's most iconic warrior classes, romanticized and mythologized for centuries. But the real story of the samurai is far more complex, fascinating, and ultimately, more human than the legends suggest. Today, we're going to unsheathe the truth, separate fact from fiction, and explore the rise, the reign, and the dramatic fall of Japan's legendary warriors. From their humble beginnings to their final, defiant stand, this is the real history of the samurai. The story of the samurai doesn't begin on a grand battlefield, but in the provincial heartlands of Heian period Japan, around the 9th and 10th centuries. The central imperial court in Kyoto was losing its grip on the countryside. Wealthy landowners and aristocrats, far from the capital's protection, needed a way to defend their estates and enforce their influence. So, they began to hire skilled martial artists and mounted archers from the local populace. These were the first samurai, a term that originally meant those who serve. They weren't a noble class yet. They were essentially armed retainers, professional muscle for hire. Their primary weapon wasn't the katana, but the yumi, the longbow, and their expertise was in mounted archery, a deadly skill on the open plains of medieval Japan. Over time, these warrior bands grew more organized and powerful. They formed clans, bound by loyalty and kinship, and their military prowess became indispensable. As the imperial court weakened, it was these provincial warrior clans, like the Taira and the Minamoto, who came to dominate the political landscape, setting the stage for centuries of samurai rule. By the late 12th century, the power dynamic in Japan had completely shifted. After the climactic Jinpei War, the Minamoto clan, led by Minamoto no Yoritomo, emerged victorious. In 1192, he established the first shogunate in Kamakura, a military government that effectively ruled Japan, leaving the emperor as a mere figurehead. This marked the official beginning of the feudal era and the ascent of the samurai class to the apex of Japanese society. The samurai were now the ruling elite. Their society was built on a rigid hierarchy, with the shogun at the top, followed by the daimyo, the powerful regional lords who controlled vast territories, and then the ranks of samurai who served them. This was the golden age of the samurai, where their martial skill and loyalty were the currency of power. Their role expanded far beyond the battlefield. They became administrators, governors, and guardians of law and order within their lord's domain. It was during this period that the ideals we associate with the samurai began to solidify. The concept of loyalty to one's lord, above all else, became the bedrock of their existence. This wasn't just a job. It was a total way of life, where honor, duty, and martial excellence were intertwined. Now, let's talk about the soul of the samurai, Bushido, the way of the warrior. It's important to understand that Bushido wasn't a single, written book of rules that every samurai carried. It was an evolving, unwritten code of ethics and ideals, heavily influenced by Zen Buddhism, Shintoism, and Confucianism. It emphasized virtues like righteousness, courage, compassion, respect, integrity, honor, and above all, loyalty. Honor was paramount. A samurai's word was his bond, and his reputation was his most valuable possession. To lose one's honor was considered worse than death itself, which is why the ritual suicide of seppuku existed as a way to atone for failure, restore lost honor, or protest an injustice. Zen Buddhism played a crucial role in shaping the samurai mindset. It taught them to be calm and focused in the face of death, to act decisively without hesitation, and to find a sense of tranquility amidst the chaos of battle. This mental fortitude was just as important as their physical training. The samurai was expected to be more than just a brute. He was expected to be a cultured individual, skilled in poetry, calligraphy, and the tea ceremony. This balance between the warrior and the scholar, the bun and the bu, was the ideal they strived for. So, what was life actually like for a samurai? It varied greatly depending on their rank and the era. A high-ranking samurai serving a wealthy daimyo might live in a comfortable residence within the castle town, receiving a generous stipend of rice, which was the basis of the economy. Their days would be filled with martial training, swordsmanship, archery, spearmanship, as well as administrative duties. In contrast, a low-ranking samurai, or a ronin, a masterless samurai, faced a much tougher existence. Ronin were a common feature of the landscape, especially during times of peace when there was less need for warriors. They often struggled to find work, sometimes becoming mercenaries, bodyguards, or even bandits to survive. The famous story of the 47 Ronin is a perfect example of samurai ideals in action, showcasing unwavering loyalty even after their master's death. But it also highlights the precarious position of those left without a lord to serve. For all samurai, however, life was structured and disciplined. From a young age, they were rigorously trained in both martial arts and academics. They lived under constant pressure to uphold their families and their lord's honor, knowing that a single misstep could bring shame upon them all. It was a life of privilege, but also one of immense responsibility. For centuries, the samurai class dominated Japan. But all eras must come to an end. By the mid-19th century, Japan had been isolated from the rest of the world for over 200 years under the Tokugawa shogunate. This policy of sakoku came to a dramatic end in 1853 when American Commodore Matthew Perry sailed his black ships into Ito Bay. Armed with superior naval technology, Perry demanded that Japan open its ports to international trade. This event sent shockwaves through the country and exposed the technological weakness of the shogunate's traditional military. The crisis sparked immense internal turmoil. Many, especially in the powerful southern domains of Satsuma and Choshu, felt that the shogunate was failing to protect Japan. A nationalist movement grew, rallying around the slogan, Sanno Joy, revered the emperor, expel the barbarians. Ironically, it was reform-minded samurai from these domains who spearheaded the movement to overthrow the old regime. They realized that to resist the West, Japan had to modernize. And to modernize, the feudal system, with the shogunate at its head, had to go. This culminated in the Boshin War, a civil war between the shogunal forces and the imperial loyalists. The victory of the imperial forces in 1868 led to the Meiji Restoration. The young Emperor Meiji was restored to power, but the real control lay with the oligarchy of former samurai who had led the revolution. Their goal was rapid and radical modernization. They looked to the West and began to transform every aspect of Japanese society, its government, its industry, and its military. The feudal domains were abolished and replaced with prefectures. A modern, conscripted army, modeled after European forces and open to all social classes, was created. In this new Japan, there was no place for a privileged warrior class. In 1876, the government issued the Hattori Edict, the final, decisive blow. Samurai were forbidden from wearing their swords in public. The daisho, that iconic pair of long and short swords, was the ultimate symbol of samurai status and identity. To take that away was to strip them of their very soul. Their stipends were converted into government bonds, often at a loss, plunging many into poverty. The samurai, the rulers of Japan for 700 years, were legally abolished. The end of the samurai was not a peaceful transition for everyone. Many felt betrayed and disenfranchised. This discontent boiled over in 1877 with the Satsuma Rebellion, the last and most significant uprising of the old warrior class. It was led by a man who is often called the last true samurai, Seigo Takamori. Ironically, Seigo was one of the key leaders of the Meiji Restoration itself, but he became disillusioned with the new government's radical reforms and its treatment of his fellow samurai. He retreated to his home domain of Satsuma and led a rebellion of disenfranchised samurai against the new Imperial Japanese Army. The Battle of Shiroyama became their final stand. Outnumbered and outgunned, Seigo and his few hundred remaining followers, armed with traditional swords and spears, charged against the tens of thousands of government troops equipped with modern rifles and cannons. It was a heroic but ultimately suicidal charge. Seigo was mortally wounded and, in the samurai tradition, was beheaded by a comrade to preserve his honor. The defeat of the Satsuma Rebellion marked the definitive end of the samurai as a military and political force. Though the samurai class was gone, their spirit did not simply vanish. The ideals of Bushido, loyalty, discipline, honor, and self-sacrifice were absorbed and repurposed for the new, modern Japan. These values were instilled in the soldiers of the new imperial army, in the students of the national education system, and in the workers of the burgeoning industries. The samurai ethos became a cornerstone of Japanese national identity in the 20th century. Today, the legacy of the samurai lives on. We see it in the global popularity of martial arts like Kendo and Judo. We see it in the corporate culture that sometimes emphasizes loyalty and group harmony. And of course, we see it in our movies, anime, and video games, where their image continues to capture our imagination. The story of the samurai is a powerful reminder of how societies can undergo radical transformation, and how the spirit of an age can endure long after its time has passed. They were more than just swordsmen. They were poets, administrators, and the architects of a unique and enduring culture. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of feudal Japan. The history of the samurai is a vast and incredible topic, and we've only scratched the surface today. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about history's most fascinating stories, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what historical topic you'd like to see us cover next. Until then, stay curious.